Okay, students. Now, there's a multiplication technique called multiplication. And, that was a really cool idea when you were a kid because, see, what you were able to do was you were able to multiply big chains of numbers because you knew place value. Here's what I'm talking about. See, if I multiplied, like, I don't know, let's keep the number kind of small, like 123 times, I don't know, 42. Or let's make it even smaller than 42. Let's just make it like 21. And the whole reason that you knew where to put your numbers was because you understood what place value was. Here, I'll leave some markers here so that we. There we go. Now, here's the thing. Everything in my first column is going to be ones, right? Everything in my next column is going to be tens. Everything in my last column is going to be hundreds. And if I have too many numbers in one column, like if I multiply two numbers together, and I got like, so let's change this number to like 6. If a number gets too large, like if I got 11, I can just move the second number of that total, like 11. I can move the 1 over to the next column. And I can just count all the numbers that I accumulated in each column. Watch. Look. 3 times 6 is what? 18? So 18 has 8 ones. And it also has 110. So I'm just going to move it over a column. Okay. And I'm carrying the 10 over to the next column. And now I'm going to multiply. Let's see. I'm still multiplying by ones. Okay. These 6 ones here. See, 26, 6 ones, 2 tens. So 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. So I'm going to write, but you keep in mind, it's not 13 like 1 10 and 3 ones. I'm already in the next column. So I have 3 tens, and I'm carrying the 1 over to my hundreds column. And I got 1 times 6, so that's 6. Plus 1 is 7. So I have 7 hundreds. Okay. Now, and then when we move over to the next number, we always add a 0. Why? Well, because I'm not counting ones anymore. I'm counting tens. I already have 6 ones. I already took care of that. Now I've got 2 tens. So let's multiply this. Well, what's 3 times 2? 6. Okay, so I just move over to the next column. A lot of us weren't even thinking that was a tens column. We just did that instinctually when we were kids. And 2 times 2 is 4, so I just write 4 in the next column. Oops, and I ran out of space. So I need a new column. So let's add a new column. And let's call this one the thousands. Okay. And let's see. So I got 2 times 2 is 4. And 1 times 2 is 2. Now I have everything in place, right? I don't need these columns anymore. Now I'm going to include a calculating line. And I'm just going to calculate how much I have in each column. And that's all I'm really going to do. So let's see. I have 8 ones only. Here I have 3 tens and 6 tens, so I have 9 tens. So it just goes in the next number, over. I never really had to think about it. So 7 plus 4 is 11, so I'm just going to write the 1 in the hundreds column, and I'm going to add another 1 over into the thousands column. 1 plus 2 is 3. Okay. And, so multiplication became a great thing, So even though you had rather large numbers, and even though you didn't have necessarily a calculator handy, you were still able to multiply small numbers at a time and put them in positions of place value. You have ones and tens and hundreds and thousands, and you're able to do that extremely well. And then you get to algebra, right? And then you get to algebra, and then they start to give you things like this. Right? And they give you like 2x plus 7. And then they start making you do really wacky things like arrows. And that's kind of strange to me because, you can still do this problem the exact same way you did when you were a kid. You can multiply the same way, vertically, with place value. I mean, it doesn't make a difference because just because you're dealing with x, it doesn't mean anything. X is still a number, and you know how to multiply numbers, so why would this be any different? So let me show you a different way how to do things. Okay, let's make some columns here. Okay, let's make 3 columns. I'm making 3 columns because I've got like 2 different types of numbers. And I get the feeling that with these exponents, I might be getting like a 3rd type of number here. So there we go. Okay, so, and now, it's going to be a little bit different, but watch how I do this. And I'm going to start on the far right side. I'm going to write the letter C. Okay, and the letter C stands for constant or number. Okay, the next column over, now this would be if you had if you didn't have any exponents. Well, what if I had like 1 exponent? Well, then it'd be, then anything x to the first power I'm going to have here. Now, anything x to the second power I'd have in this column, and then anything x to the third power, I'd have in this column. And just keep building, okay? So do keep that in mind as I begin to add some of these things together. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write 2x plus 7, see, because that's the items in my second parentheses. And it doesn't really matter which order you do it in. Then x plus 3. So here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to multiply. And then I'm going to multiply in the exact same order that I do when I multiply anything else. Don't let the fact that you have an x get in the way of something you know how to do and you've been doing for some of you like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. Maybe not 10 years, but you've been doing this, you've been multiplying for so long, you know the order of which you multiply. Like, you would multiply, whatever's in the upper right-hand corner times whatever is in the lower right-hand corner. So let's just do that, right? So 7 times 3 is 21, right? So I have 21 numbers without an exponent. Okay. Now, what would I multiply after that? Well, what would you usually multiply? So you'd have 2x, which is the number in the upper left-hand corner, times whatever's in the lower right-hand corner. Well, so what's 2x times 3? 6x. So let's just write 6x in the x column with just the 1 there. And make sure to write positive there, because you don't want to get confused. All right, so I'm done multiplying by my constants, or my numbers without exponents. So then I'm going to write a 0 in this column. Now let's multiply everything times x. So what is 7 times x anyways? Well, 7 times x is 7x. So I'm going to put that in the x column. And what is, okay, so now let's 2x times x. Now I got two different things going on here. I got the number 2, and 2 times x, it's just 2. All right, and then how many x's am I multiplying? Well, I'm multiplying x twice. So I have 2x, and since I'm multiplying x twice, the exponent is 2. And notice I put that in a column that has x squared. Now I'm just going to write a calculating line underneath. And I have 21 numbers without a variable. I have 6 x's. I have 7 more x's. Now I have 13 x's. Should probably put a plus sign there. And I have nothing to add here. So there. Now I multiplied everything. And you notice I multiplied in the same order that I multiply if I had just numbers. There's really no difference here. You can use the technique. It still works. It's still good. There's still numbers. I mean, even though I don't know what the number is and it's x, I still know the number. I still know it's a number. I just don't know the exact number. And I still have place value. Instead of ones, tens, hundreds, they're exponent related. And it's okay because, we have a base 10 system. And in a later time, I'll connect why these two can be done. But that's for a different time. So what if I had maybe a slightly bigger chain? What if I had x squared plus 3x plus 4, and I multiplied that by x minus 5. Okay, so there's really not a whole lot of difference here, but again, it makes your life so much easier if you just had some place value to this. So I'm going to make a couple columns. I'm going to need one for my numbers. I'm going to need one, I can put my numbers here. I need one for x, I'll put it here. I need one for x squared, I'm going to put it here. I'm probably going to need one more. I can always add columns if I need to. It's not really that big of a deal. And I'm always going to write a horizontal line at the very top. Always at the top. Just so I can label what I'm doing. As long as I stay organized, I think I'm going to be okay. And then one underneath. Okay, so here I'm going to write c for my constants. I'm going to write x to the first power. That's anything with x. Doesn't really matter. Then x squared. Then x to the third power. And I'm never really going to skip exponents just because it gets sloppy and messy if I do that. So here I'm going to write x squared plus 3x plus 4. And underneath, in the next parentheses said x minus 5. So underneath I'm just going to write x minus 5. It doesn't really matter which one you write first or which one you write second. And again, you're just multiplying the same way as you would multiply, let's say, pretend instead of x squared, this was 100. And instead of 3x, this was 30. And instead of 4, this is 4. Well, I guess that doesn't make a difference. And instead of x, it'd be 10. And this would be 5. So it'd be 134 times 15. Well, in what order would you multiply? Well, I'll multiply all three terms by negative 5. So let's do that. 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. And so I'll write that in the constants column. 3x times negative 5, negative 15x. So I write negative 15x in the next column. X squared times negative 5, negative 5x squared. All right, now I put a 0 in this column because I'm not going to multiply anything by these constants anymore. So now I'm going to multiply these three terms by x. So what's 4 times x? Well, 4x. So I'm going to write plus 4x in the x column. 3x times x. Well, x times x is x squared. And then I have a 3, but I'm not multiplying that by anything. So just 3x squared. And x squared. X squared times x. I'm multiplying x twice. I'm multiplying x a third time. So I'm multiplying x. So it's x to the third power. So I'm just going to put x to the third power in the x to the third power column. Now I'm going to write another calculating line here, and let's just see what I have. So negative 20 plus 0, well, just negative 20. Negative 15x plus 4x, negative 11x. Negative 5x squared, I have negative 5x squared, but I'm going to add 3 of them. Let's see, negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2x squared. And x to the third power is just x to the third power. And multiplication's done. So one thing I want you to get in the habit of is the understanding of how multiplication really doesn't have to be complicated. Like, we make it complicated because we like to do things horizontally. And then we have to use arrows to help guide us. But why do that? Why go through all the toil and the trouble of learning something completely new when you have something that would work in the first place? And we'll keep practicing that, but I think you'll be okay. And I hope this helps.